Hail, EC here, and the Nintendo Switch 2 sure is a console. It exists. And the question we've got to ask is it really worth it? So, with the Switch 2, I'm going to start off with going over the positives, before we get into, obviously, the drawbacks I have with the system. Since I had it at launch, I bought it, obviously, I pre-ordered it back in April, got it on June 5th, when obviously launch day. I got, got it as soon as the store opened. I went in and got it. I was 5th customer in line, but we're going to go over this. So I'll start with the positives. The positives we're going to start with is literally, it works. You know, it works, and it does feel like it is the next iteration of the Switch. It does feel like it is a Switch 2, is a more powerful Switch, first of all, which is what we needed. We needed a more powerful system so we could actually get the third-party support, because obviously, as the console generations went on between the Switch versus the Xbox Series S and the PS5, obviously the Xbox and the PlayStation were a lot more powerful, meaning that some games wouldn't work as well on the Switch H1, so we needed a more powerful Switch. That is true. The features they've added is nice. Obviously, the screen is amazing. It's got a nice screen. It's bigger than the Switch 1 screen as well, which is great to see. The kickstand they have added is an improved kickstand from what we had on the Switch 1 as well. I know the OLED already improved on that, but this one's still quite nice. There's a new fan in the dock, which helps, you know, with the cooling when obviously you're playing high-intensity games. Great to see. And the mouse functionality in the Joy-Cons, whilst I think is a little bit strange, because obviously only a few games support it so far. The only games I've known that support are Mario Paint, which is on Switch Online. The Drawbacks Drive, which is an eShop exclusive game for Switch 2, and obviously the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which less said about that the better. I do think that is a unique idea. It is a unique feature of the Switch 2, and I am glad that they've actually, you know, added that as obviously features. You also put outputs to 4K when docked, and obviously, I'm pretty sure it put outputs to 1080p when in handheld mode. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I do think obviously the quality of the games looks quite nice as well. Now we need to talk about the negatives. So the price tag, I'm not insanely annoyed at the price tag. I paid like £400 for my one. I know it's like $450 for like the base tier in America. If you want a bundle of Mario Kart, it's like $500. For me, like if I wanted to get a bundle of Mario Kart World, it would cost me £430, so not too insane in my opinion. The price of the console isn't that insane. However, my big concern is obviously what they've offered since launch. Now, I know it's only been about 4 months. By the time this video goes out, it'll be October, so obviously it's been about 4 months. So far, I'm not really feeling it. You know, so far we've seen what? A few Switch 1 games get Switch 2 editions, which included, you know, maybe like a DLC mode, basically, and they charged like 10 to 20 extra quid for it, which, you know, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with them doing that. It's just obviously some of these games you got to really question like what the value or the value proposition really is, because they had the Switch 1 version. Switch 1 version was fine, and now they're charging you more money for the Switch 2 version. With the Switch 2 version adding very minimal stuff. Like, I understand obviously making it run faster and run better, which is great, but then you also got to question why these games were running so bad on Switch 1 to begin with. So the enhanced improvements and enhanced graphics of some of the games are okay. They are what they are. The DLC modes for some of the games like, you know, Jamboree TV, for example, on Super Mario Jamboree, I kind of get it. But, like, also, it's just kind of annoying that, you know, we're seeing all these, like, ports of Switch 1 games, which, you know, the Switch 1 had a lot of Wii U games, that is true. But with the Switch 2 ones, it just feels a bit more iffy, because this console's actually backwards compatible with Switch 1. Then we also got to factor in, like, the first-party games, like, new games we've seen haven't been quite, you know, frequent. I know we're only a few months in, but so far we've received, what, 4 brand new games from Nintendo. Mario Kart World, which was a launch title, and it is probably the most divisive like game out at the minute for the Switch 2, because obviously people love it and they hate it, because obviously the open world aspect is not that great. It also has less tracks than other Mario Kart games, but I do think they will obviously fix it over time. However, we don't really want to wait for over time for these things to be fixed. We want this stuff to sort of work as is. Then we also have the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which people will like. With that game, I know people hate it. I know people are mad because we have to pay like $10 or £8 for it, depending on where you are. And not being funny, I see why people are annoyed. It does sort of like feel like it should have been a pack-in for free. but also like it's not really very good anyway, and it just sort of teaches you like about the new functionality of the stuff in this, of all the features in the system, and it's just like, okay, cool. And then we have Drawbacks Drive, which obviously requires the mouse in the Joy-Con to actually be playable. It's not a bad game per se, but I don't really know anyone that really likes it. It's not really like everyone's first choice, is it? And then we have Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is probably the best game so far for Switch 2. It's probably one of Nintendo's best games they've ever made. You know, it's the first 3D Donkey Kong in a long time. It's great fun, but you can't sell a system just based on one game. They've also added the GameCube app, which has received regular updates, obviously adding new games. There's currently 5, at the time of making this, 5 GameCube games on Switch 2. But I'm curious. I'm curious what Nintendo's going to do to really push things forward, because obviously we need more first-party stuff. We need more third-party support. And we just kind of need, like, people to sort of have a reason to buy one. Like, to me, a Switch 2, if you don't already have a Switch, which, considering how many people bought a Switch 1, and obviously one of its many variants of the OLED and the Lite, and obviously the regular Switch, I have very much doubt you don't have one. And to me, I don't feel like it's worth upgrading if you already have a Switch or OLED. Like, if you already have an OLED, it should all be fine. Everything should run perfectly fine for you, to be honest. Also, the game keycards, not a fan, because obviously you don't actually have the full game on the cartridge. It's a download. It's kind of annoying that they're doing this as well. But really, like, I don't really know. To me, the Switch 2 just doesn't feel like it's worth it as of right now. Am I having buyer's remorse? Not really, because, you know, I get to talk about it on YouTube and stuff, so I get to, you know, have a discussion about it. But to me, it just feels like Nintendo kind of just came out with this. They had it ready, and they was like, okay, we're going to push it out. But they didn't have the games ready. That was the problem for me. And hopefully, you know, maybe, you know, give it like a few months. We'll obviously have some new stuff. You know, we already have some games confirmed. We have Pokemon Legends EA and Metroid Prime 4, for example, which, yes, they are obviously multi-generational games. They're cross-gen games. But I reckon it'll be nicer on Switch 2 to look nice and play nicer, hopefully. Then we also have, you know, some other games coming. We have, obviously, Kirby Air Riders coming. We have Mario Tennis Fever, which I have mixed opinions on. To be honest, I'm not really hyped for that. But really, I do kind of feel like Nintendo needs to convince people over the next few months why you should buy a Switch 2. Otherwise, it's going to be another Wii U situation, which, whilst it has some great games, doesn't really sell the console. Now, it was the fastest selling console of all time, selling like 3.5 million consoles in 4 days. Impressive numbers. Let's see if they can keep those numbers going. I doubt they can, because it's quite a high numbers to really, you know, keep going. But genuinely, I do kind of hope that they, you know, give us some more support from third parties and obviously Nintendo's own first party output. And hopefully, within a few months, you know, people will look back and be like, okay, maybe it is worth buying a Switch 2. But to me, as of right now, I don't think it's worth buying a Switch 2 if you don't already have a interest in the games, or you didn't already have a Switch. Because otherwise, these games just, there's no real reason to buy them, because obviously there's not as much first party or third party support so far. Most of it's backwards compatible, so obviously everything is backwards compatible besides like Labo. So there is that is a positive. But then, you know, if you don't already have a Switch, then you probably weren't interested in that stuff anyway. And if you are interested in buying a Switch 2, obviously, you know, I'm not going to say don't do it. I would say, I'll probably wait for Black Friday, you know, discounts and whatever, see if there's anything like that. But really, to me, I feel like as of right now, if you already have a Switch 1 or an OLED, you're probably already quite good, you know. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know what you think. I've been EC. If you're new, make sure you like, share, subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.